The Velen observation ship floated silently in the cold darkness of space. It was connected to the Joint Research Station by a long metal bridge. The station was home to many different species from across the galaxy. They all worked together, shared meals together, and tried to understand each other. Most of the time, things were peaceful. Officer Tilo sat at his monitoring station. His 4 eyes watched the many screens in front of him. Each screen showed a different part of the station. He could see the dining hall where some aliens were eating breakfast. He could see the laboratory where scientists were working. He could see the sleeping quarters where many beings were still resting. Tilo was a Velen. His people had thin bodies covered in soft blue skin. They had long fingers and large heads. Velens were known for being very careful and very nervous. They did not like surprises. They did not like loud noises. They especially did not like anything that seemed dangerous. The morning had been quiet so far. Tilo was almost bored. He yawned with his small mouth and looked at the time. His shift would end in a few hours. He was thinking about what he would eat for lunch when the first alarm went off. The sound was sharp and loud. Red lights began to flash on his control panel. Tilo jumped in his seat. His 4 eyes went wide with fear. He looked at the screen that was causing the alarm. It was the sensor for the human quarters. The words on the screen made his blood turn cold. Warning, hostile creature incoming. Extreme energy detected. Threat level maximum. Tilo's thin fingers shook as he pressed buttons to get more information. The computer showed him numbers and readings. The energy spike was massive. It was the kind of reading they would expect from a weapon, or from a very dangerous predator preparing to attack. "No, no, no," Tilo whispered to himself. "This cannot be happening." He pressed the communication button with a trembling hand. Commander Nera, please respond. Emergency!" A few seconds passed. Then a calm voice answered. "This is Commander Nera. What is the problem, Officer Tilo?" Commander Nera was also a Velen, but she was different from Tilo. She had served in the fleet for many years. She had seen many things. She was not easily scared. Her voice was always steady and controlled. "Commander? The sensors are detecting something terrible in the human quarters," Tilo said quickly. His words came out fast and jumbled. "The readings show a hostile creature. The energy levels are extremely high. It looks like an attack is about to happen." There was a short pause. "Are you certain? The human quarters have been peaceful. There is only one human on the station right now." "I am looking at the data, Commander. The computer does not lie. Something is generating enormous force in that area. The pattern suggests physical movement of great power. Whatever is in there, it is not normal." Commander Nera's voice remained calm, but Tilo could hear a tiny bit of worry creeping in. "I will come to the observation deck immediately. Do not take any action until I arrive. Keep monitoring the situation." "Yes." "Commander." Tilo stared at the screen. The readings were still high. Whatever was happening in the human quarters, it was not stopping. He watched the numbers change, and his fear grew larger with each passing second. The human quarters were in Section 7 of the station. It was a small area because humans were rare visitors. Most species in the galaxy had never even seen a human before. Humans had only recently joined the galactic community. They came from a small planet called Earth, far away in a quiet corner of the Milky Way. Tilo had met the human on the station once. His name was Kim Tae. He seemed like a normal being. He was not very tall. He had strange round eyes and smooth skin without any scales or feathers. He smiled a lot and spoke in a friendly way. Tilo had thought he was harmless. But now the sensors were telling a different story. Commander Nera arrived at the observation deck. She walked quickly but did not run. Running would show fear, and a commander should never show fear. She stood beside Tilo and looked at the screens. "Show me everything," she said. Tilo pulled up all the data. The energy readings appeared on the main screen. They were displayed as a graph with sharp peaks and valleys. The peaks were very high, too high. This started approximately 3 minutes ago, Tilo explained. The energy signature came from inside the human sleeping room. At first, I thought there might be a malfunction in the sensors, but I ran a diagnostic check. The sensors are working perfectly. Commander Nira studied the readings with her 4 eyes. Her face was hard to read, but Tilo knew she was concerned. These numbers were alarming. The pattern is strange, she said slowly. It shows a buildup of tension, then a sudden release of force, like something coiling and then exploding outward. Like a predator preparing to strike, Tilo added nervously. Nira nodded slightly. Perhaps, or perhaps something else entirely. We know very little about human biology. Their bodies are still a mystery to most species. She turned to the communication panel and pressed a button. Attention all security personnel. This is Commander Nira. Report to Section 7 immediately. We have a potential threat situation. Approach with extreme caution. Do not engage until further orders. The response came quickly. Within moments, Tilo could see security officers on the other screens. They were gathering their equipment and moving toward the human quarters. They carried stun weapons and wore protective armor. Should we warn the other species on the station? Tilo asked. If there is a dangerous creature, they should know. Nira shook her head. Not yet. We do not want to cause panic. First, we must understand what we are dealing with. There could be a simple explanation. But even as she said this, Tilo could see she did not fully believe her own words. The readings were too extreme. Something was very wrong. On the screen, the energy levels spiked again. The computer added new warnings. Structural stress detected. Possible physical damage to surroundings. Creature displaying signs of aggressive behavior. Tilo felt sick. His thin body trembled. He had joined the observation fleet because it was supposed to be a safe job. Watch the screens. Report any problems. That was all. He never expected to face something like this. The human, he said quietly. Do you think the creature has already attacked him? Maybe he is hurt. Maybe he needs help. Commander Nira's expression was grim. That is possible. Or perhaps... She did not finish her sentence. Perhaps what? She looked at Tilo with all 4 of her eyes. Perhaps we have been wrong about humans all along. Perhaps they are not what they appear to be. The thought was terrifying. Tilo had read the reports about humans when they first arrived in the galactic community. The reports said they were friendly, peaceful, a young species that wanted to explore and learn. But what if the reports were wrong? He thought about Kim Tae and his friendly smile. Was it real, or was it a mask hiding something dangerous underneath? The security teams reached Section 7. Tilo watched them on the screens. They moved slowly and carefully, their weapons ready. They surrounded the door to the human sleeping room. One of them raised a hand to signal the others. They are in position, Tilo reported. Commander Nira leaned forward. Open a direct communication channel to the team leader. Tilo obeyed. A moment later, a voice came through the speakers. Team Leader Boko here. We are outside the human quarters, awaiting your command. Proceed with caution, Nira ordered. Open the door and assess the situation. Be prepared for anything. Understood, Commander. On the screen, Tilo watched as the security team prepared to open the door. His heart was beating fast. His mouth was dry. Whatever was behind that door, they were about to find out. The sensor reading spiked one more time. The warning message flashed red. Hostile creature activity continuing. Recommend immediate defensive action. Tilo held his breath. The door began to open, and somewhere inside the human quarters, completely unaware of the chaos he had caused, Kim Tae finished his morning stretch and wondered what he should have for breakfast. Kim Tae had slept very well. The bed in his quarters was surprisingly comfortable. It was designed for many different body types, so it could adjust to his human shape perfectly. He had fallen asleep quickly and dreamed about his home back on Earth. In his dream, he was sitting by a river with his grandmother. She was teaching him how to fish. The sun was warm on his face. The water made soft sounds as it flowed past. It was a peaceful memory from his childhood. When he woke up, he felt happy and relaxed. The room was dark because the automatic lights had not turned on yet. He lay in bed for a few minutes, enjoying the quiet. Space stations were always full of sounds, machines humming, air moving through vents, footsteps in distant hallways. But in the early morning, everything seemed softer. Tay looked at the small clock on his wall. It showed the station time. He still had an hour before his work shift began. That was good. He did not like to rush in the mornings. He sat up slowly and swung his legs over the side of the bed. His bare feet touched the cold floor. He made a small sound of surprise. The floor was always cold in the morning. He should remember to wear socks to bed. Tay stood up and raised his arms high above his head. He stretched his whole body, reaching toward the ceiling. His muscles were stiff from sleeping. He could feel the tightness in his shoulders and back. He stretched harder, pulling his arms back and pushing his chest forward. There was a loud cracking sound as his spine adjusted. Several of his joints popped. Tay groaned with relief. It felt wonderful to stretch after a long sleep. He twisted his body left, then right. More cracking sounds. He bent forward and touched his toes, feeling the pull in his leg muscles. He had no idea that his simple morning routine was causing panic in the observation deck. He did not know that sensors were detecting his movements as hostile activity. He could not imagine that armed security teams were gathering outside his door at that very moment. To Tay, it was just another morning. He finished stretching and walked to the small bathroom connected to his room. The light turned on automatically when he entered. He looked at himself in the mirror. His black hair was messy from sleep. His eyes were still a little puffy. He needed to wash his face and wake up properly. The water in the station was recycled and purified. It tasted a little strange, but Tay was used to it now. He had been on the station for 3 weeks. He was an engineer, sent to help repair some of the older systems. The station had been operating for many years, and some of the technology was starting to fail. Tay splashed cold water on his face. It helped him feel more awake. He looked at his reflection again and smiled. Today would be a good day. He could feel it. He dried his face with a soft towel and walked back into the main room. He was thinking about breakfast. The station had a dining hall where all the different species could eat together. The food was interesting. Some of it was delicious. Some of it was very strange. Tay had learned to be careful about what he chose. He opened his closet and looked at his clothes. He had brought several uniforms from Earth. They were simple and practical. Dark pants and a gray shirt with the Earth Engineering Corps logo on the shoulder. He got dressed quickly, moving with the easy confidence of someone who had done this thousands of times. As he was putting on his boots, he heard something outside his door. It sounded like footsteps, many footsteps, and whispered voices. Tay paused. That was unusual. The human quarters were in a quiet part of the station. Not many beings came this way. He listened more carefully. The footsteps had stopped, but he could still hear the whispers. They were too soft for him to understand the words. He shrugged and finished putting on his boots. Maybe someone was lost. Or maybe there was a meeting in one of the nearby rooms. It was probably nothing important. He stood up and looked around his room one more time. Everything was in order. He grabbed his datapad from the desk. It contained his work schedule and technical documents. He would need it for the repairs he had planned for today. Tay walked to the door. He pressed the button to open it. The door slid to the side with a soft hiss. What he saw on the other side made him stop completely. There were at least 10 Velen security officers standing in the hallway. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons. The weapons were pointed directly at him. Their four eyes were wide with fear and tension. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Tay blinked in confusion. Good morning?" The security officers did not respond. They stared at him like he was a monster. Their weapons remained raised. Tay noticed that their hands were shaking slightly. "Is something wrong?" he asked. He spoke slowly and clearly. Maybe there had been a translation problem. The universal translators were very good, but sometimes mistakes happened. One of the officers, who seemed to be the leader, finally spoke. His voice was high and nervous. "Human, do not move. Stay exactly where you are." Tay was very confused now. "Okay, I am not moving. But can you tell me what is happening? Did I do something wrong?" The officer did not answer. Instead, he spoke into a communication device on his wrist. "Commander Nira, this is Team Leader Boko. We have made contact with the human. He appears to be alive and unharmed." There was a pause. Then a female voice replied, "Unharmed? What about the hostile creature? The sensor readings showed extreme activity in that area." Boko looked at Tay with obvious confusion. "Commander, there is no creature here. There is only the human. He just opened his door and greeted us." Another pause. "That is not possible. The sensors detected massive energy signatures. Something was generating enormous force in that room." Tay listened to this conversation with growing curiosity. Hostile creature? Energy signatures? What were they talking about? His room was completely normal. There was nothing dangerous in there. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I think there might be some mistake. There is no creature in my room." "It is just me. I woke up a few minutes ago and I was getting ready for work." The security officers looked at each other. They seemed unsure about what to do. Their weapons were still pointed at Tay, but with less conviction than before. Team Leader Boko spoke into his communicator again. "Commander, the human claims there is no creature. He says he was alone in his room." "That cannot be right. I am looking at the sensor data now. The readings are still elevated. There is definitely something unusual in that area." Tay scratched his head. He was not scared, just very confused. The aliens seemed afraid of something, but he had no idea what it could be. "Would you like to search my room?" he offered. "You can look around. I promise there is nothing dangerous inside. Just my bed, my clothes, and some personal items from Earth." The security officers hesitated. Boko looked at his team, then at Ty. The human did not look threatening. He was smiling in a friendly way. His hands were empty and visible. He seemed genuinely puzzled by the situation. "Commander, the human is offering to let us search his room," Boko reported. "Do it. Search every corner. Find the source of those readings." Boko nodded to his team. Two officers stepped forward carefully. They moved past Tay and entered his room. Their weapons scanned every surface. They looked under the bed. They checked inside the closet. They examined the bathroom. Tay stepped aside to let them work. He was still holding his data pad. He looked at the time and realized he might be late for breakfast. His stomach made a small growling sound. The nearest officer jumped at the noise, raising his weapon toward Tay's stomach. "Sorry," Tay said quickly. "That was just my stomach. I am hungry. I have not eaten yet." The officer stared at him with wide eyes. He did not lower his weapon. After several minutes of searching, the two officers returned to the hallway. They looked embarrassed and confused. "Team Leader, the room is empty. There is no creature. There is nothing unusual at all." Boko frowned. This made no sense. The sensors had shown clear danger readings. Commander Nira herself had confirmed the data. But the room was empty except for the human. He looked at Ty again. The human was standing calmly, waiting patiently. He did not look scared or angry. He just looked like someone who wanted to go eat breakfast. "Human," Boko said slowly. "What were you doing in your room before we arrived? Think carefully. What exactly were you doing?" Tay thought about it. "I woke up. I stretched my body because I was stiff from sleeping. I went to the bathroom and washed my face. Then I got dressed. That is all." "You stretched?" "Yes, like this." Tay raised his arms above his head and stretched again. His shoulders cracked loudly. Several of his joints popped. Every single security officer took a step backward. Their weapons came up again. Boko made a strange, squeaking sound. Tay lowered his arms. "What? What is wrong?" The officers were breathing heavily. Their blue skin had turned a lighter shade, which Tay had learned meant fear or shock. They looked at him like he had just done something terrifying. "Commander," Boko said into his communicator. His voice was shaking. "I think we found the source of the readings. You need to come see this yourself." Commander Nira walked quickly through the corridors of the station. Officer Tilo hurried behind her, carrying a portable scanning device. The device was still showing the strange readings from the human quarters. The numbers had decreased slightly, but they were still much higher than normal. "This makes no sense," Tilo muttered as they walked. The readings clearly showed a hostile threat. The energy patterns matched those of a large predator preparing to attack. How can there be nothing there? Nira did not answer. Her mind was working through the possibilities. She had been in the fleet for many years. She had encountered many strange situations, but this one was new. The data said one thing, but reality seemed to say another. They reached Section 7. The security team was still standing in the hallway outside the human quarters. They had lowered their weapons but remained tense. In the middle of the group stood the human, Kim Tay. He looked confused but not upset. Nira approached him slowly. She studied him with her 4 eyes. He was shorter than she expected. Human bodies were strange to look at. They had only 2 eyes, positioned close together on the front of their faces. Their skin was smooth and came in various shades. This one had dark hair and tan skin. He was wearing a simple uniform. "I am Commander Nira," she said. "I am responsible for security on this station. Can you tell me what happened in your room this morning?" Tay nodded politely. "Yes, Commander, but I do not understand what the problem is. I did nothing unusual. I just woke up and prepared for my day. Our sensors detected something very alarming. They showed extreme energy readings coming from your room. The pattern suggested a hostile creature was present." Tay's eyebrows went up. Nira had learned that this expression meant surprise in humans. "A hostile creature. In my room? That is impossible. There was only me." "That is what my officers reported. But the data does not lie. Something generated those readings." Tilo stepped forward, holding up the portable scanner. "Commander, if I may, I would like to scan the human directly. Perhaps the source of the readings is coming from him somehow." Nira considered this. It seemed unlikely. The human looked completely normal, but they had no other explanation. "Human, do you agree to be scanned? The device is not harmful. It simply measures energy and biological activity." Tay shrugged. "Sure, go ahead. I have nothing to hide." Tilo approached carefully. He held the scanner in front of Tay and pressed the activation button. The device hummed softly as it worked. Numbers and readings appeared on the small screen. At first, everything seemed normal. Then Tilo's eyes went wide. He made a small gasping sound. "Commander, you need to see this." Nira moved closer and looked at the screen. What she saw made her skin turn pale. The readings were extraordinary. The human's body contained far more energy than it should. His muscles were dense and powerful. His bones were thick and strong. His heart pumped blood with surprising force. Even at rest, standing still and relaxed, his body was generating more energy than most Velen soldiers during combat training. This cannot be accurate, Nira said quietly. I ran the diagnostic 3 times, Tilo replied. The scanner is working perfectly. These readings are real. Nira looked at the human with new eyes. He was just standing there, waiting patiently, looking slightly bored. He had no idea what the scanner was showing. He had no idea that his body was registering as a weapon. Human, Kim Tae, I need to ask you some questions. Of course. When you woke up this morning, you said you stretched. Can you explain what that means? Tae seemed surprised by the question. Stretching? It is very normal for humans. When we sleep, our muscles become stiff. When we wake up, we stretch our bodies to loosen them. It feels good. Everyone does it. Show me. Tae hesitated. Show you? Right now? Yes. Do exactly what you did this morning. Tae looked around at the security officers. They were watching him closely. Some of them still had their hands near their weapons. The whole situation was very strange. But the commander had asked politely, so he decided to cooperate. Okay, this is what I did. He raised his arms slowly above his head. He interlaced his fingers and pushed his palms toward the ceiling. Then he stretched his entire body, reaching as high as he could. Several loud cracking sounds came from his spine and shoulders. His joints popped like small explosions. The muscles in his arms and back flexed and released. He let out a small groan of satisfaction. The effect on the Velans was immediate. Every single one of them stepped backward. 2 officers raised their weapons. Tilo nearly dropped his scanner. Commander Nira's 4 eyes blinked rapidly, which was a sign of extreme shock. The scanner was beeping loudly. Tilo looked at the screen and his voice came out as a whisper. The readings. They spiked. Massively. During the stretch, his body generated force equivalent to a Class 3 impact weapon. His muscles contracted with enough power to crush standard building materials. Tae lowered his arms and looked at them all with confusion. What? Is something wrong? That was just a normal stretch. Nobody spoke. The silence was heavy and uncomfortable. The Velans were looking at him with a mixture of fear and amazement. Even Commander Nira, who was usually so calm, seemed disturbed. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was careful and measured. Human. I need you to understand something. What you just did, what you call a simple stretch, registered on our sensors as a hostile attack. The energy you generated in those few seconds would be considered dangerous by most species in this galaxy. Tae blinked. Dangerous? But I did not hurt anything. I just stretched my muscles. Your muscles? Yes. Nira paused, choosing her words carefully. How much can you lift? If you had to pick up something heavy, what would be your limit? Tae thought about it. I do not know exactly. On Earth, I could carry about 50 kilograms without too much difficulty. Maybe more if I really tried. Tilo made a strange, choking sound. Nira's eyes went wide again. 50 kilograms, she repeated slowly, casually, without difficulty. Yes? Is that unusual? The Velans exchanged glances. Tilo pulled up some information on his datapad. Commander, the average Velan can lift approximately 8 kilograms at maximum effort. Our strongest soldiers, after years of training, can manage 15 kilograms. Tae felt his face become warm. He was embarrassed, though he was not sure why. Oh, I did not realize. On Earth, 50 kilograms is not considered very strong. Many humans can lift much more than that. Much more? Nira's voice was barely above a whisper. Yes. Professional athletes can lift hundreds of kilograms. There are humans who can carry vehicles, pull trains, lift weights that I cannot even imagine. Tae tried to smile reassuringly. I am just a normal engineer. I am not strong compared to other humans. The security officers looked at each other with expressions of pure horror. If this human, who considered himself weak, could generate such terrifying force, What could the strong ones do? Commander Nira took a deep breath. She needed to stay calm. She was a professional. This was just new information. Surprising information. Extremely alarming information. But she could handle it. "Kim Tae," she said, "I want to thank you for your cooperation. Clearly there has been a misunderstanding. Our sensors detected your stretching and interpreted it as a threat. We were not aware that human bodies were so—" She searched for the right word. "Powerful?" Tae offered. "Yes, powerful." The word felt inadequate. "We will need to recalibrate our sensors. This kind of false alarm cannot happen again." Tae nodded. "I understand. I am sorry for causing trouble. I did not mean to scare anyone. You did not cause trouble. You were simply being human." Nira paused. "Perhaps in the future you could warn us before you stretch?" Tae was not sure if she was joking. Her face was hard to read. "I can try, but I stretch many times a day. It is not something I usually think about." "Many times a day?" Officer Tilo sounded faint. "Yes. In the morning, after sitting for a long time, before and after exercise, sometimes in the middle of the night if I wake up." Tae shrugged. "It is very common." The Velans absorbed this information in stunned silence. The idea that humans regularly performed activities that registered as hostile attacks was difficult to process. Commander Nira straightened her uniform. She needed to report this to the station council. The other species needed to know about human capabilities. This was important information. This could change everything. "Thank you, Kim Tae," she said formally. "You may continue with your day. I apologize for any inconvenience." "No problem." Tae smiled his friendly smile. "I was going to get breakfast. Would anyone like to join me?" The invitation was met with absolute silence. The security officers stared at him like he had suggested they jump into a black hole. The thought of sitting near this creature while it ate food, while its terrifying body processed nutrients and generated more impossible energy, was more than they could bear. "Perhaps another time," Commander Nira said diplomatically. Tae nodded and walked away down the corridor. The Velans watched him go. His footsteps seemed heavier now. His casual movements seemed more significant. Every swing of his arms, every shift of his weight, was a reminder of the power hidden inside his ordinary-looking body. When he turned the corner and disappeared from view, Team Leader Boko finally lowered his weapon completely. "Commander," he said slowly, "what do we do now?" Nira stared at the empty corridor where the human had gone. "Now," she said, "we learn everything we can about humans, and we hope we never see them angry." The emergency council meeting was held in the large conference room at the center of the station. Representatives from every species on board were present. They sat around a circular table, their different bodies and faces showing various expressions of concern and curiosity. Commander Nira stood at the front of the room. Behind her was a large display screen showing data and charts. She had spent the last hour preparing this presentation. The information she was about to share would change how everyone thought about humans. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," she began. "This morning we had an incident in Section 7. Our sensors detected what appeared to be a hostile creature in the human quarters. Security teams were deployed. What we discovered was unexpected." She pressed a button, and the screen showed the sensor readings from that morning. The graph displayed sharp peaks and valleys. The numbers were highlighted in red to show danger levels. These readings were caused by a single human performing a common morning activity. He was stretching. The room erupted in confused murmurs. The representatives looked at each other with puzzled expressions. "Stretching?" asked Ambassador Vito, a large being covered in green scales. "I do not understand. How can stretching generate such readings?" "That is what we wanted to know," Nira replied. So we conducted a full biological scan of the human. What we found was remarkable. She changed the display to show the scan results. Images of Kim Tae's body appeared, with different systems highlighted: muscles, bones, heart, lungs. Human bodies are extraordinarily powerful. Their muscles are dense and can generate enormous force. Their bones are thick and difficult to break. Their cardiovascular system is incredibly efficient. Even at rest, a human body produces more energy than most species produce during peak activity. The room was silent. The representatives stared at the data on the screen. "But there is more," Nira continued. "This morning's incident made us realize how little we know about humans. So, I contacted Earth and requested additional information. They sent us a biology expert. She arrived an hour ago." Nira gestured toward the door. "Please welcome Dr. Park Hana, human biologist." The door opened, and a young woman walked into the room. She was small, even shorter than Kim Tae. She had long black hair tied back in a neat ponytail. She wore a white coat over her clothes. She looked around the room with bright, curious eyes. The various aliens watched her with fascination. She was the second human most of them had ever seen. She looked harmless. She looked fragile, even. But after what they had just heard about human capabilities, they knew appearances could be deceiving. "Hello, everyone," Hana said with a friendly smile. "Thank you for having me. I understand there was some excitement this morning involving my colleague. I am here to help explain human biology and answer any questions you might have." She walked to the front of the room and stood beside Commander Nira. Despite being surrounded by aliens, she seemed completely comfortable. She had studied many species during her career. This was just another learning opportunity. "First, let me explain what happened this morning," she began. "Kim Tae woke up and stretched. For humans, this is completely normal and happens multiple times every day. We do it without thinking. It is as natural as breathing." She demonstrated a small stretch, raising her arms above her head briefly. Several of the aliens flinched at the movement. "When humans sleep, our muscles relax and become stiff. Stretching helps increase blood flow and prepares our bodies for activity. The cracking sounds you may have heard are gases being released from our joints. It is not harmful. In fact, it feels quite good." Ambassador Vito raised a scaled hand. "Doctor, the sensor readings this morning showed force levels comparable to weapons. Are you saying humans generate this force simply by moving?" Hana nodded. "Yes, that is correct. Human bodies evolved on Earth, which is a planet with relatively high gravity and challenging environmental conditions. To survive, we needed strong bodies. Our muscles can generate impressive force. Our bones can withstand significant impact. Our skin heals quickly when damaged." She pulled up new images on the display screen. These showed humans performing various activities: running, jumping, lifting heavy objects, fighting. Humans are what biologists call endurance predators. On our home planet, we hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We can run for hours without stopping. We can travel vast distances on foot. Our bodies are designed for sustained effort. The aliens absorbed this information with growing unease. The images on screen showed humans doing things that seemed impossible: carrying loads that should crush them, running at speeds that should exhaust them instantly, surviving injuries that would kill most species. "But we are not just strong," Hana continued. "We are also very adaptable. Humans can survive in extremely hot environments and extremely cold ones. We can function at high altitudes where the air is thin. We can eat a wide variety of foods that would poison other species. We heal from injuries that other beings could never recover from." A small, furry alien named Representative Kodo spoke up. His voice was squeaky and nervous. "Dr. Park, you speak of humans as if you are describing predators, but humans have always presented themselves as peaceful. Are we in danger?" Hana's expression softened. She understood their fear. From their perspective, they had just discovered that the friendly visitors from Earth were secretly terrifying. "You are not in danger," she said gently. "Yes, humans have the physical capability to cause harm. But we have also developed strong social and moral systems. Most humans value peace, cooperation, and friendship. We came to the galactic community because we want to learn and connect, not to conquer." She paused to let her words sink in. "Think of it this way. Humans are aware of our own strength. We have been living with it our entire existence. We have learned to control it. We do not use our full power in everyday situations because we do not need to. We save it for emergencies." Commander Nira stepped forward. "Doctor, can you give us some examples of what humans are capable of when they do use their full power? We need to understand what we are dealing with." Hana thought for a moment. "There are many examples throughout human history. In moments of extreme danger, humans can perform feats that seem impossible. Mothers have lifted vehicles to save their children. Soldiers have continued fighting despite severe injuries. Athletes have pushed their bodies far beyond normal limits." She showed more images on the screen. News reports from Earth about incredible human achievements. "There is a condition we call hysterical strength. When humans face life-threatening situations, our bodies release chemicals that temporarily increase our capabilities. Pain is reduced. Fear is suppressed. Strength is amplified. In these moments, ordinary humans can become extraordinarily powerful." The room was very quiet. The aliens were imagining what an angry, frightened, or desperate human might be capable of. "But please understand," Hana added quickly, "these situations are rare. In normal daily life, humans are calm and controlled. Kim Tae stretched this morning without any awareness that he was doing something unusual by your standards. To him, it was just the start of another day." Representative Kodo raised his small paw again. "What about human children? Are they also this powerful?" "Human children are weaker than adults, but they are still remarkably strong compared to many species. They grow quickly and become more powerful as they age. A teenage human is often stronger than a full-grown adult of most other species." Several aliens exchanged worried glances. The idea of young, inexperienced humans with such capabilities was concerning. Ambassador Vito leaned forward. "Dr. Park, I must ask directly. If there was a conflict between humans and other species, what would happen? Could we defend ourselves?" Hana was quiet for a long moment. This was a difficult question. She wanted to be honest, but she also did not want to frighten them more than necessary. "I hope such a conflict never happens," she said finally. "Humans truly want peace. We have seen enough war among ourselves. We came to the stars hoping for something better." She looked around the room at all the different faces watching her. "But if you are asking whether humans could pose a threat in combat, yes, we could. Human soldiers are trained to fight in ways that would be devastating against most species. Our weapons are designed for beings as strong as ourselves, and when pushed to our limits, humans become unpredictable and dangerous." The room fell into heavy silence. "However," Hana continued, her voice warming, "I prefer to focus on the positive. Human strength has also been used to help others. We rescue beings in danger. We build things that improve lives. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. Our power does not have to be frightening. It can be reassuring." Commander Nira nodded slowly. "Thank you, Dr. Park. This has been very informative. I believe we all have much to think about." Hana smiled. "I am happy to answer more questions at any time. And please, do not be afraid of Kim Tae. He is a kind and gentle person. He would never hurt anyone intentionally. He might stretch a few times today, but I promise it is perfectly safe." A few of the aliens managed weak smiles at her attempt at humor, but most of them were still processing the new information. Their understanding of humans had changed completely in the space of one morning, As the meeting ended and the representatives left the room, they all shared the same thought. The friendly humans from Earth were far more than they appeared to be, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. 3 months had passed since the morning that changed everything. Kim Tae had finished his engineering work on the station. The old systems were repaired and running better than ever. Dr. Park Hana had stayed as well, serving as a cultural bridge between humans and the other species. The station had returned to its normal routine, but nothing was quite the same. Tae noticed the changes slowly at first. It started with small things. When he walked down the corridors, other beings would step aside to let him pass. They would press themselves against the walls, giving him plenty of space. At first, he thought they were just being polite, but then he noticed the fear in their eyes. In the dining hall, aliens would leave seats empty around him. A buffer zone would form naturally, with nobody sitting within 3 chairs of the human. When Tae moved to get more food, conversations would stop. All eyes would follow him until he sat back down. The strangest part was the bowing. It started with a young Velen named Suni. She worked in the laboratory as a research assistant. One morning, Tai yawned while waiting for his coffee. His jaw cracked loudly, his arms stretched upward, his back arched. Suni dropped her data pad and immediately bowed. Her thin body bent almost in half. She stayed in that position until Tae finished yawning and looked at her with confusion. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Did you lose something on the floor?" Suni slowly straightened up. Her blue skin was pale with fear. "No, human. I was showing respect. Please forgive me if I offended you." "Offended me? You did not do anything wrong. I was just yawning." But Suni had already hurried away, clutching her data pad to her chest. After that, the bowing became more common. Whenever Tae stretched or yawned or made any sudden movement, nearby aliens would bow. Some would actually lower themselves to the floor. Others would simply incline their heads quickly before continuing with their business. Tae found it very uncomfortable. He was just an engineer from Seoul. He was not royalty. He was not a warrior. He was just a normal person who happened to get tired sometimes. He decided to talk to Hana about it. He found her in her small office, surrounded by books and research papers. She was studying the biology of a species from the outer rim. When Tai knocked on her door, she looked up with a warm smile. "Tae, come in. How are you?" "Confused," he admitted, sitting down in the chair across from her desk. "Something strange is happening on the station. Everyone keeps bowing to me." Hana's smile widened. She leaned back in her chair. "Ah, yes. I was wondering when you would notice. You know about this?" "Of course. I helped cause it." Tae stared at her. "What?" Hana laughed. It was a pleasant sound that made the whole room feel warmer. "Remember the meeting after your stretching incident? I explained human biology to the station council. I told them about our strength, our endurance, our capabilities." "I remember. But I did not think it would lead to this." "Neither did I, honestly. But you have to understand their perspective. For most of these species, humans are like something from a nightmare. We are natural predators with bodies built for hunting and fighting. We can generate force that their sensors register as weapons fire. We can survive conditions that would kill them instantly." She gestured around the room. To them, every human is a potential threat. Even a friendly engineer from Earth who just wants to fix machines and eat breakfast. Tae frowned. "But I have never hurt anyone. I do not want to hurt anyone." They know that. At least they know it intellectually. But fear is not always rational. When they see you yawn, they see a predator opening its jaws. When they see you stretch, they see a creature preparing for combat. Their instincts tell them to submit, to show that they are not a threat. So they bow. So they bow. It is their way of saying, "Please do not hurt me. I recognize your power. I mean no harm." Tay felt terrible. He had never wanted to frighten anyone. He had come to space because he loved the idea of meeting new beings and learning about different cultures. Instead, he had become something that made others afraid. "What can I do?" he asked. "How can I make them less scared?" Hana considered this question carefully. "Time will help. The more they interact with you without anything bad happening, the more comfortable they will become. You should try to be as gentle and predictable as possible. Move slowly when others are nearby. Give warnings before you stretch or yawn. Let them get used to your presence." That sounds exhausting. It is, but it is also important. We are ambassadors for our entire species. The way we behave affects how all humans will be perceived. Tay nodded slowly. He understood the responsibility, even if he did not enjoy it. Over the following weeks, he tried to follow Hana's advice. He moved more carefully in public spaces. He announced his stretches before doing them. He smiled constantly and spoke in a soft voice. Gradually, very gradually, the fear began to decrease. The bowing continued, but it became less extreme. Aliens would nod respectfully instead of folding themselves in half. They would step aside politely instead of running away. Some brave souls even began to sit closer to him in the dining hall. One day, something unexpected happened. Tay was working in the engineering section, repairing a ventilation system. A small alien named Mickey was assisting him. Mickey was from a species called the Tovi. They were tiny beings, no bigger than Ty's hand, with soft fur and large, curious eyes. As they worked together, a heavy metal panel suddenly came loose from the wall. It fell directly toward Mickey. In that moment, without thinking, Tay reached out and caught it. His arm moved faster than he knew it could. His hand closed around the panel, stopping it centimeters from Mickey's head. The panel was heavy, very heavy, but Tay held it as easily as if it were made of paper. Mickey stared up at him with enormous eyes. For a moment, Tay expected the little alien to run away, screaming. Instead, Mickey did something surprising. "You saved me," Mickey said softly. "The panel would have crushed me. You moved so fast. You are so strong." Tay set the panel aside carefully. "Are you okay? I did not mean to scare you." Mickey was quiet for a moment. Then, slowly, the small alien climbed up onto Tay's shoulder. Mickey sat there, nestled against Tay's neck, tiny and trusting. "I am not scared," Mickey said. "You could hurt me easily, but you chose to save me instead. That is what matters." Tay felt warmth spread through his chest. This was the moment he had been hoping for. Not fear, not submission, just understanding and gratitude. Word of the incident spread quickly through the station. The story was told again and again. The human had used his terrifying strength not to harm, but to protect. He had risked himself for one of the smallest beings on the station. After that, things changed more rapidly. Aliens began to approach Tay with less fear and more curiosity. They asked him questions about Earth, about human culture, about his life before space. He answered them all patiently, happy to finally be seen as a person instead of a monster. The bowing did not stop completely. Some habits were too deep to break easily. But the meaning behind it changed. It became less about fear and more about respect. The aliens bowed not because they were afraid of Tay's power, but because they admired how he chose to use it. On his last day at the station, Tay stood in the main hall saying goodbye to the beings he had come to know. Commander Nira was there. Officer Tilo was there. Mickey sat on his shoulder as had become usual. "Thank you for everything," Tay said. "I have learned so much here." Commander Nira stepped forward. In her hands, she held a small medal. "We want you to have this. It is our highest honor for off-world visitors. You have shown us that strength does not have to be frightening. It can be gentle. It can be kind." Tay accepted the medal with a bow of his own. The gesture surprised everyone. A human? Bowing to them? On Earth, We also bow to show respect, Tay explained with a smile. You have taught me much about courage and understanding. I am grateful. As his shuttle departed the station, Tay looked back through the window. He could see small figures gathered at the observation deck watching him go. Some of them were waving. He stretched in his seat, his joints cracking pleasantly. This time, he did not worry about sensors or alarms. He was going home with new friends, new knowledge, and a new appreciation for what it meant to be human. The galaxy was vast and full of different beings. Some were large and some were small. Some were strong and some were weak. But all of them, Tay realized, had the capacity for understanding. That was the real power, not muscles or bones or physical force, but the ability to see past fear and find connection. He smiled as the stars flowed past his window. This was only the beginning. Humanity had so much more to offer the galaxy, and somewhere out there, countless more adventures were waiting. All it took was the courage to reach out, or maybe just a good stretch.